King Nimi was performing a sacrifice, and for no reason whatsoever other than giving their association to King Nimi, they descended from space, all 9 of them, and King Nimi did something you're not supposed to do. When you start a yajna, you don't stop. And he stopped. And he stood and he folded palms, offered his wonderful appreciation. I don't know who you are, but you're obviously very special people. And I would like to present some questions and 2 chapters worth of transcendental knowledge answers to his very elevated questions. That's chapters 2 and 3. Chapter 4 and 5, we're in Dwarka. Narada is in Dwarka. He spent a lot of time in Dwarka. He didn't just once upon a time visit. He spent a lot of time in Dwarka to be with Krishna. And while he was with Krishna, he also naturally spent time with Krishna's father. Krishna's father's name is, what's Krishna's father's name? Starts with a V. Vasudeva. Very good. So he visited the home of Vasudeva, and then Vasudeva took the opportunity to inquire from Narada Muni about transcendental knowledge. So we're getting now 4 chapters in a row, transcendental knowledge, very, very clear, elevated discussions in transcendental knowledge. It sets the stage for chapter 6. In chapter 6, at the end of that discussion with Narada Muni, Vyasadeva became inspired to hold a yajna in his house. And his house doesn't mean like this. It was a palace and so forth. And brahmanas from all over the land came and celebrated yajna. He rewarded the brahmanas profusely. And then the brahmanas went to a nearby place, not in Dwarka, but near Dwarka, where they had their assembly together, doing what brahmanas do together. And an unfortunate event happened. That event was orchestrated by Krishna's Yogamaya potency. The sons of Krishna and the other children in the same age went to that place where the brahmanas were, and they made fun of them. They made fun of them by having Samba dressed like a lady and put a lump of iron underneath the sari, and the other boys asked the brahmanas, see this lady here, she's pregnant, she's shy, she wants to know, so she won't keep her head covered, she wants to know what will be the gender, boy or girl, of the child to be born of her. Of course, the brahmanas knew that they were being made fun of, a butt of joke. They didn't like it. And they cursed the boys by saying, this entity is going to be the destruction of the Yadu dynasty. The whole of the Yadu dynasty is going to have to pay for your offense against the brahmanas. So the boys were trembling. They went back to Ugrasena. What to do? Ugrasena consulted his ministers. The ministers decided, take the lump of iron and grind it into a little powder. Throw it into the sea. So that's what they tried to do, with the exception of one fist-sized piece of iron that would grind no matter what. So they threw that into the sea along with the powder. The powder washed up onto the shore of the sea, and it mixed with the reeds that were growing by Prabhas, and later they became iron-like in firmness. And the piece that wouldn't grind, a fish swallowed it in the sea. The fish was caught by a fisherman. The fisherman sold the fish to a hunter. The hunter, when he opened the fish, found that piece of iron, and he thought, fantastic, I'll use this to make a tip of an arrow. So it was that iron that was the tip of the arrow, the tip of the heel of Krishna, that was the so-called procedure for Krishna to leave this world and leave behind material body. So you all know that pastime. All this is being orchestrated by Krishna's Yogamaya program, the whole thing. And the reason it was, is he had, before being in Dwaraka, he had just been in Vrindavan. Vrindavan is that, went that way. He was in Vrindavan and arranged for the winding up of the Vrindavan pastime. That occurred just after killing Dantavakra. There's an elaborate discussion. It's not mentioned in the Bhagavatam. It's mentioned elaborately in Padma Purana. Krishna spent 2 months. Krishna spent 2 months in Vrindavan, and the purpose was winding up the Vrindavan pastime, along with giving his association. So there's different things that happen. Now Krishna is in Dwaraka, winding up the Dwaraka pastime. So after this cursing and this instruction by Ugrasena, next in chapter 6 come the demigods. And Krishna was in a private place. The demigods came before him, offered wonderful prayers, very similar to the prayers that they were offered before Krishna appeared in the prison house of Kamsa, and not so dissimilar from the prayers that were all offered to Lord Vishnu at the shore of the Milk Ocean for Krishna to appear. So their prayers glorified him and then said, the purpose of your appearance has now been fulfilled. You kept your promise. You annihilated all the demons, and if you so desire, you may return. So the stage is set for Krishna to return. And they departed. And Krishna was contemplating after they left. We're still in chapter 6, where Krishna is considering the time has come for my pastimes to end. The stage is set because the Brahmanas have cursed that the entire Yadu dynasty will be killed, or will be destroyed. And there's one thing left, and that is I want to instruct Uddhava. So he didn't send a messenger, just Uddhava showed up. But he wanted, for Uddhava, 2 things. He wanted to give instructions to Uddhava that he could then carry to the Badrinath, where the Narayana Rishi associates were situated, because when he came to this world, it was to give association to his devotees, but he hadn't given association to that group of devotees. So Uddhava would be his representative to do that. And then the second was, Uddhava could travel around and give teachings to others after Krishna's departure, Krishna's teaching. So Uddhava showed up. That's what's the image that you see on the screen. You can see the screen. It's Uddhava Gita. They're in Dwaraka. And Uddhava falls at Krishna's feet. Says 2 things. I know you're going to leave. Please take me with you. He's so close to Krishna, he knows. Krishna didn't tell him. But he knows Krishna. You're going to leave. Please take me with you. I can't bear to your separation. I can't bear to be without you. And then he asked the second question, which is the subject that we're discussing from chapters 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. I think it's an important question. And there's a lot of discussion. And the question was, essentially, I want to know you without obstacle or obstruction. And there is an obstruction, that is, I have too much attachment to family life and the temporary things of this world. So please help me overcome that obstruction or obstacle so that I can see you and understand you perfectly. Now, remember, there's been 4 chapters. The Navyogendras, and then Narada speaking to Uddhava, Narada speaking to Vasudeva on transcendental knowledge, and we're going to get another 5 chapters of transcendental knowledge. I guess it's important, huh? Must be important. Not only devotional service. Now, devotional service is the essence. Devotional service is the essence. We know that. And, not but, and to enter into the realm of devotional service effectively, foothold is needed for knowledge and detachment. So, in answer to the end of chapter 6 question, there's 3 chapters where Krishna responds. He first gives a general answer. Uddhava basically says, say it again, I didn't get it. So Krishna says it again. And he says it again by giving the example. Krishna's giving the example of one of their ancestors, King Yadu, because they're the Yadu dynasty, right? King Yadu had a discussion with an Avaduta Brahmin about how did the Avaduta Brahmin become so detached? Because that was his question, how to become detached. Not like throw my family away or throw my possessions away, not that, but not overly attached. It's an important topic for householders and anybody that has a material body, in order to understand Krishna without obstruction or obstacle. So the Avaduta Brahmin says, I learned this from 24 gurus. 24 gurus, it's interesting, 24 gurus. They include wind, the sun, the sky, birds, bees, insects, and mountains, and and he gives an explanation for each of the 24. And a girl that had multiple bangles on her wrist. There's a long section in chapter 8 on Pingala, the prostitute. Anybody learned from Pingala, the prostitute? And she's the only one out of all of them that actually ended up in unflinching devotional service, because this knowledge and detachment is meant to bring one to devotional service. So that was 7, 8, 9. And then in chapter 10, Krishna adds, after what the Avaduta Brahmana said, here's how one can become like the Avaduta Brahmana. He gives explanations, and he includes a very lengthy description of those who think that you can get relief by going to the heavenly planets are mistaken, because it's also temporary there. And there's attachment there, and there's fear there. And, it's just a different version of the same thing here. And you end up back here after there. So that's not a solution. That's not how you're going to get to the place where the Avaduta Brahmana was. And you're not going to get to devotional service by that aspiration. I mean, he said many other things, but that's a little simple summary. And at the end of chapter 10, Buddha asks a good question that is answered in chapter 11, which we're discussing. Chapter 10 question is, could you explain this understanding that seems to be contradictory, but I know it's spoken by learned souls? Those who are Nitya Baddha can become Nitya Siddha, and that seems a contradiction because Nitya means Nitya. How can an eternally conditioned become eternally liberated, or in the association of the eternally liberated? Because they're eternally conditioned. Could you explain? Fascinating chapter. If you don't listen carefully, your mind will spin. And even if you listen carefully, it's like you'll be scratching your head. So Krishna says, your question is misleading. Why? Because the soul is pure, and the soul is neither Nitya Baddha or Nitya Siddha. Nitya Baddha and Nitya Siddha are designations of souls that are not contaminated. Then it goes into this, listen carefully, there's becoming liberated, that's okay, but the soul is not liberated. The soul is pure. It doesn't become liberated. Nor does the soul become conditioned. Wait a minute, the follow the Jiva question. The soul doesn't become conditioned. It certainly seems like we're conditioned. Certainly seems like it. These certain people I know, they're really conditioned. I think I'm conditioned too. So, what does it mean? And so then Krishna says, this conditioning is due to avidya shakti, and the liberation is due to vidya shakti. Avidya and vidya shakti. Listen, both of them are subdivisions or parts of Maya Shakti. They're coverings. The soul is pure, and the covering is either this or that. But even that kind of liberation that comes from Vidya is but a covering. It's not the soul proper. And then he goes on to say, this is Bhagavad Gita, it's 101, and this is 201 or maybe even 301. Transcendental knowledge. But remember, there's already been 4 chapters of transcendental knowledge, and then another 4 chapters after that. So now we're ready for 301. So listen, really interesting. In addition to the avidya and vidya shaktis, there's a third, which is pradhan, which provides bodies, gross and subtle, or soul. Those are definitely covering. That we understand in ISKCON. That's 101. We're not this body. So thinking that we're the body, or thinking that we're the mind, that's not who we are. If we think that way, that's upadhi, the designation, not who we are. And based upon that influence of the body, gross and subtle, then the avidya and vidya shaktis, the clouds are thicker, the clouds are lighter. But we're still clouded, not understanding who we are. We can at least understand who we're not. And to say, aham brahmasmi, what's that? Well, it's not this and not that. That's what it is. It's another covering. And we all know very well, from the process of cultivation of knowledge or the process of bhakti that's not yet pure, one can go to a high place of consciousness and wait a while. You find yourself back where you were before. Isn't it? Sound effect. It's the bungee cord, or it's the conditioning. It's another, according to what Krishna says to Uddhava, it's another covering. But there is this Maya Shakti is a reflection or chaya or abhas of the internal potency. Krishna has internal potency. When one connects with Krishna, that is not just the Maya Shakti category or the reflection of his internal potency. It's his internal potency. You connect with Krishna, you're fixed. No punarjanma, no. No more gross cover, no more subtle covering, no more birth and death, no more up and down, no more identification with the temporary, no more affinity for the temporary that blocks your understanding of Krishna. He's answering our Uddhava's question. It's very delicate. You have to read it a few times to catch what he's saying. But in essence, bhakti is the means of deliverance. Krishna didn't get on the bhakti soapbox and say bhakti, bhakti, bhakti yet. He's answering the question, how to overcome the undue attachment to the affinity, the temperament. And the emphasis is starting with knowledge, but the purpose of the knowledge is to know Krishna without obstruction. The without obstruction method is bhakti. So we're engaged in in chanting Hare Krishna and reading Bhagavad Gita, it's not just what the Jnani does who reads Bhagavad Gita, or what Adi Shankara did when he began commenting on Bhagavad Gita, or other scholarly people who write their commentaries on Bhagavad Gita. That's the flashlight looking for the sun method, the ascending method. So we read Bhagavad Gita, but our purpose in reading Bhagavad Gita is to stimulate our bhakti. It's in every verse, and especially you read Prabhupada's purports, it's in every purport. And if you don't read Prabhupada's purports, you make that just the cultivation of knowledge part, the Vidya Shakti part, and then go up and then come back down again. Because there's no shelter, just in light. Have shelter. You know this from the Bhagavad Gita. So he's giving different examples to help Uddhava understand the distinction. He's likening the pure soul to himself, because qualitatively they're one. But then we're in a section where he's describing the difference. And he starts with something that we all know in our Krishna movement, the two birds in the tree example. One bird is eating the fruit, the other bird is witnessing that one. It's in 3 Upanishads, and it's right here in the Bhagavatam, and it's elaborately discussed. And when the living entity connects with Krishna, with understanding the qualitative oneness with myself, with Krishna, then he becomes unaffected by the temporary as much as Krishna is unaffected by the temporary. That means we can become as liberated as Krishna is. In fact, we are. But we're under the whammy, under the influence of Maya Shakti, because we turned away and wanted to become the enjoyer of the fruits of our activity. So that example is explained. And now we're in the section that I'm just going to read from. It's furthering that topic. It's a discussion on the distinction between the individual and the Supreme Soul. In one sense, it's Sambandha Gyan. We all know what that means. Sambandha, the relationship between the individual and the source of everything. So we're marginal, tatastha Shakti. Depending upon which direction you look, you're influenced by Maya Shakti, or you're influenced by the internal potency. External potency or internal potency, depending on whether your back is to Krishna or your face is to Krishna. So there's a distinction. Now we're going to read verses 14, 15, 16, and 17. All of that was just a warm-up. This class. Well, you had the opportunity to hear nice kirtan. Well, this is Krishna speaking to Uddhava. You see, Krishna's at his feet. They're in Dwarka. Uddhava knows that Krishna is going to leave, and he wants Krishna to take away the undue affinity for the temporary. Krishna speaking. A person is considered to be completely liberated from the gross and subtle material bodies when all the functions of his vital energy, senses, mind, and intelligence are performed without material desire. Such a person, although situated within the body, is not entangled. The previous verse was really fantastic. It's describing when moving through the field of the temporary, what does a liberated soul feel? What do they see? What's their experience like? In case you wanted to know what it's like to be liberated. Krishna is describing it. Here the emphasis on material desire, because the material desire is the hook that causes the bewildering influence of the material energy. But if that material means seeing separately from Krishna, if the material desire, wanting to be the enjoyer of that separate energy over there, if that material desire is mitigated, and it's not speaking to an avaduta, he's speaking to a household, his dear friend, and householder. Krishna's a householder too. So many queens. So it's not ashram specific. Now, I'm going to read some things that are Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur very kindly made a commentary on the whole of Uddhava Gita, and he summarized the commentary of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So we're going to hear that too, as well as Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's. So here's Bhaktisiddhanta's commentary, his translation of this verse. A person is known to be actually liberated from the gross and subtle material bodies when all the functions of his body and mind are performed without material desires. Although possessing a material body, such a person is not bondage. The BBT purport reads, short, the material body and mind are subject to lamentation, illusion, hunger, lust, greed, insanity, frustration, etc. But one who remains active in this world without attachment is considered to be vinir mukta, or completely liberated. The vital energy, senses, mind, and intelligence are purified when engaging in devotional service of Lord Krishna, as is confirmed throughout Srimad Bhagavatam. Here's Bhaktisiddhanta's purport. Those who have no material desires are not influenced by the three modes of material nature, even though they are situated within the material world. Their vital energy, senses, mind, and intelligence are purified when engaged in the devotional service of Lord Krishna. Non-devotees are the servants of their material desires, whereas devotees are the servants of the Supreme Lord. It's, nothing we haven't heard before, not shocking and surprising. It's just being, very specific about what the experience is like. And so what's the difference between Nityasiddha and Nityabada, or the conditioned and liberated soul? Remembering the fact souls are pure, these are just designations. We become designation-less when we identify ourselves as servants of Krishna. We have to have some identity. So, Bhaktisiddhanta's gloss of Vishwanath's commentary. Uddhava had asked, quote, how does a liberated person live, unquote? The answer is that although the material body and mind are subject to lamentation, illusion, hunger, lust, greed, insanity, frustration, and so on, one who remains active in this world without attachment is considered vinir mukta, or completely liberated. Notice the BBT commentary is drawing strongly from Bhaktisiddhanta, which is appropriate. Here's what Vishwanath actually writes. Question. How does a liberated person roam about? Answer. Freed from the qualities of the body like lamentation and illusion, he roams about with the functions of prana, senses, mind, and intelligence, free of desire. That was text 14. Then comes text 15. Translation. Krishna speaking. Sometimes, for no apparent reason, one's body is attacked by cruel people or violent animals. At other times and in other places, one will suddenly be offered great respect or worship. One who becomes neither angry when attacked nor satisfied when worshipped is actually intelligent. So does that sound familiar from Bhagavad Gita? The Bhagavad Gita verse, where Krishna says the same thing in Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. It starts with M. Matra sparshasta kaunteya, titushna sukha dukkada, agama payo nityas tangshatikya sabharat. There Krishna is saying titiksha, because that's like the entry level. Titiksha means you tolerate. But once you beyond tolerating, like, bite a bullet and don't scream when something hurts, or someone praises you and you don't start dancing or feeling jubilant. But, you get to the stage where it's the behavior of a transcendentalist is they're indifferent. Now, they may smile and they may wince. But inside, they're situated with Krishna, so they're transcendental. Before being situated with Krishna, they're situated in knowledge. That's discussed in chapter 4 of Bhagavad Gita. One who is situated in the abode of transcendental knowledge, etc., etc. We're not at the full bhakti stage yet. We're just at the vidya shakti stage. And they're neutral or indifferent. There's Sanskrit terms for all of that. Materially indifferent. Now there's a problem if one is materially indifferent but not yet giving oneself to Krishna. It's called lethargy. And it's not a happy situation. Because you're going to be attracted to something and you go back to being attracted to the temporary. That's what happens. If it's just knowledge, it's shakti. Pendulum swings the other way. Unless there's shelter. And it's genuine shelter. Like firm. Bhaktisiddhanta's translation of the verse is quite similar. Sometimes one may be tormented by a miscreant mind, or attacked by a ferocious animal, body and the mind. And at other times may be shown all respect and worship. One who does not become angry when attacked or satisfied when worshipped is certainly most intelligent. So the Buddha is the Sanskrit word intelligent. Spiritual buddhi is spiritual intelligence, not the other kind. Like how to get the projector balanced on top of the coconut water so it projects onto the screen. That's a different kind of intelligence than buddhi. Buddhi is go to Krishna. Vidami buddhi yoga kam yena mama vyankate. One who has intelligence, spiritual intelligence, sees what's what, and it's this, and then it's that, and one is indifferent, not just tolerate. BBT purport: if one does not become angry when attacked for no apparent reason, and if one does not become enlivened when glorified or worshipped, then one has passed the test of self-realization and is considered fixed in spiritual intelligence. There's another verse in Bhagavad Gita 18:54 that says this more mature stage is the Brahmabhuta verse. Who wants to recite the Brahmabhuta verse? Any of our younger generation people know the Brahmabhuta verse? Any of our older generation people know the Brahmabhuta verse? Which half do you know? The other half is Samak Sarveshu Bhuteshu Mad Bhaktim Labhate Param. Mad Bhaktim Labhate, obtain. Mad Bhaktim labate param. It's parabhakti, or pure devotional service. Pure devotional service begins when the practicing stage has passed. Pure devotional service in the mature stage begins when you have mature self-realization. What's a symptom? Prasanatma, na sochati, na kankati, neither hankering, lamenting, neither becoming discouraged when somebody is harsh with you, maybe regularly harsh with you, maybe you're a relative or mother-in-law or something like that, harsh with you, something. I hear this from ladies, so really hard. Can never please her, can't do anything right. So, anyway, if somebody is harsh with you, it happens. We all know. Stop for half a second, you can think of when somebody was harsh with you. And you can just get caught up in it, or you can be fixed in transcendental knowledge. And prasanatma, that's a symptom. Nasochati nakansati, the second symptom. Tamak sarveshu bhuteshu, the third symptom. Madbhakyam devate param. Your devotional service begins at that point. Uddhava asked Lord Krishna, Kayar va gyatena lakshanai, or by what symptoms can a self-realized person be recognized? Here it is. Just as Lord Krishna enlightened Arjuna, now he explains the same subject matter to Uddhava. In this verse, the Lord describes symptoms by which it is very easy to recognize a saintly person. For a normal person becomes furious when criticized, or attacked, or overwhelmed with joy when glorified by others. There's a similar statement by Yajnavalkya. Yajnavalkya. Who's Yajnavalkya? He's mentioned, those of you that like reading Prabhupada's book, you know something about Yajnavalkya. He's one of the students or disciples of Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva divided the Vedas. Yajnavalkya. But here's what Yajnavalkya wrote. One who is actually intelligent does not become angry, though pricked with thorns, and does not become satisfied at heart merely by being worshipped with auspicious paraphernalia such as sandalwood. In the commentaries, he gives the full Sanskrit that he wrote. I'll just read Vishwanath's commentary. How is the liberated person to be recognized? 3 verses give easily recognized qualities. The liberated person whose body is attacked by the wicked, by shoes or fists, or without reason is worshipped with garland and sandalwood, is not disturbed. For he does not become angry with the violent person, or happy with the gentleman. Yajnavalkya has said. Gives the Sanskrit. Here's the from Yajnavalkya Smriti 3.54. The wise man, on being beaten with thorns or anointed with sandalwood, remains indifferent, not becoming either angry or joyful. Maybe some of you are just, my thought is going to, in Ramayana, in the whole story of Vishwamitra, before he became Vishwamitra Muni. He was a king, and he visited the place. Where did he visit? Vashishta. And he wanted, Vashishta offered, let me make a meal for you. Oh, I've got all these followers, and you're just a sadhu. And said, no, you don't understand. This Kamadhenu of mine can take care of everything. And so da-da-da-da-da. The whole thing was displayed from the cow. And, Vishwamitra wasn't used to being denied anything because he's the king. And he said, please give me your cow. I'll give you millions and millions and millions of gold coins and all kinds of nice things. Vishishta said, I can't part with my cow can produce all those things, but I don't have any need for all those things. So he then became, angry. The king became angry. He started taking the cow. And the cow turned to him, saying, protect me. And he said, it's the nature of kings to do things like this. It's the nature of Brahmanas to be tolerant. I mean, it was really bad what he was doing, taking property of Brahmana. Big mistake. What to speak of the issues. So anyway, what I was thinking. Even in the most trouble, and there's so many other examples. So many other. He did something, but he didn't become angry. He didn't do it out of anger. Text 16. Really short. A saintly sage sees with equal vision, pandita samadarshana, or samak-sarveshu bhuteshu. A saintly person sees with equal vision and therefore is not affected by that which is materially good or bad. Indeed, although he observes others performing good and bad work, and speaking properly and improperly, the sage does not praise or criticize anyone. Now that's pretty high. He can see, but doesn't criticize. There's a really nice section of Chaitanya Charitamrita, one of my favorite sections. When Krishnadas Kaviraj was requested by all the Vaishnavas, please write down the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya and explain his teachings, because the world isn't going to know them if it's not captured in a written form. And being, qualified, he was very humble. So he didn't want to do it without the blessings of all the Vaishnavas. So what did he do? He went to the Vaishnavas and asked for their blessings. And one of the Vaishnavas he went to was, turns out he was the Uchari of the Radha, the Govindaji deity. Nice section. He was Haridas Pandit, who was a disciple of Gadadhar Pandit. And it was said about Haridas Pandit is, although he could see, he never saw, never spoke about the qualities and faults of others. Guna and dosha, qualities and faults. And Prabhupada's explanation is so nice. It's really short. And Prabhupada explained that naturally, within everything of this world, and every person of this world, there's qualities and faults. But he overlooked the faults and saw the qualities and glorified the qualities. And nobody would, because he was so much like that, no one even dared to speak criticism of a Vaishnava before him. It just nobody did it. It wasn't like it was a no-no. They just wouldn't. They couldn't, because he was so pure. So this is the transcendentalists. They can see, but they don't fault find. If you see and you don't fault find, what do you do? If you're on such a high level, and we're not on such a high level, what do those people do? Not on that level. They well-wish others, and they elevate others by their well-wishing, and by their words, and by their presence in their life. Now, for purposes of preaching, Prabhupada would sometimes use harsh words. Sometimes. Rascal. You know that mean? You listen to Prabhupada's lectures. Do a word search in any one of his lectures. Put in rascal and see how many times Prabhupada says rascal. And he knew it was strong language. But it was for a benedictine purpose. It was for cutting the affinity or offensiveness towards Krishna, because persons that are offensive towards Krishna, the rest, etc. So it wasn't for the sake of criticism, it was for the sake of elevating. In one of the documentaries, that Yadovar and Vishaka made long ago, Your Ever Well-Wisher, I think was the title. There's a scene there in the... If you've been to the Los Angeles temple, there's the front of the temple, and over on the right side is the temple. And down through the middle, there's a little alley. That's where the Fate Museum is. And then on the left side is the restaurant, and upstairs it's the gift shop. And Prabhupada's quarter was on the far right side. You have to go around through the alley and up. His quarters were over there. And on the left side, there was a sitting area, still a sitting area. And Prabhupada would sit on a nice vyasasana, and persons would come and hear him. It was in the afternoon, weather in Los Angeles, mild generally, warm and mild and sunny. Not just smog, but otherwise warm and And in one of those videos, in front of him were maybe 15 to 20 professors, all with suits, very well dressed. Prabhupada is on a raised seat. They're looking up at Prabhupada. One of the professors said to Prabhupada, "Why do you use this word rascal?" He said, "It's Krishna's word." He said, but couldn't you say something? I understand the intent. Couldn't you use a softer word like "they're mistaken" or something? I think we have exact words. And Prabhupada chuckled. Because he's calling them that name, and they know it. Use a softer word. And Prabhupada smiled and said, some told the foolishness of that rascal. They all laughed. So he wanted to cut the affinity for the temperate. And he would do it, lovingly, not abrasively. Although some people may have taken it abrasively. It was lovingly. He wanted to cut the affinity for the temperate, which is the whole conversation here with Uddhava. So now we're moving on to the last, text 17. Then I'm going to show you some nice pictures. Text 17. For the purpose of maintaining his body, the liberated sage should not act, speak, or contemplate in terms of material good and bad. Rather, he should be detached from all material circumstances, aware but detached, and taking pleasure in self-realization. He should wander about engaged in this liberated lifestyle, appearing like a retarded person to outside. He's speaking again in favor of the Avadhuta Brahman, but Krishna did walk around like a retarded-looking person, and he's not asking Uddhava specifically to walk around like a retarded-looking person or Avadhuta. He's a householder. He's a minister in the government. He has a lot of important service to do. He didn't ask Yudhisthira to do that, or Arjuna to do that. But he's speaking specifically, it means the spirit, that degree of detachment. I think what I'm going to do, because of time, we started late and did all that introduction. I'm just going to go to some of these nice pictures. Hope you can see the screen. The young lady that got married yesterday, Shruti Mangara, she did the graphic creation. So I'll just read what it says. In this verse, text 15, the Lord describes the symptoms by which it is very easy to recognize a saintly person. For a normal person becomes furious when criticized or attacked, and overwhelmed with joy when glorified by others. There's a similar statement by Yajnavalkya to the effect that one who is actually intelligent does not become angry, although pricked with thorns, and does not become satisfied at heart merely by being worshipped with auspicious paraphernalia such as sandalwood. So the fellow on the right, he's looking up and happy, and one on the left is looking down and darkish colors. And as far as I can see, that the thumbs up and thumbs down is just taking the image and inverting it. Okay, here's another. Text 17, there's two. For the purpose of maintaining his body, a liberated sage should not act, speak, or contemplate in terms of material good or bad. Rather, he should be detached from all material circumstances. Then, taking pleasure in self-realization, he should wander about engaged in this liberated lifestyle, appearing like a retarded person to outsiders. Here's the final image. The devotee makes elaborate plans to engage all the fallen souls in Lord Krishna's service so they can be purified and go back home, back to Godhead. Merely rejecting material things is not perfect consciousness. One must see everything as the property of the Lord and meant for the Lord's pleasure. So obviously in the center of this image is the Rath Yatra cart, carts with different sides, etc. Prabhupada's image is prominent here, and engaging people in different ways, rather than calling upon them to just renounce stuff, calling upon them to engage their talent, their ability, their energy, their strength, their resources, their whatever they have in service to Krishna. Yukta Vairagya principle. That's how Prabhupada practically applied this teaching from Uddhava Gita and the process of bhakti. Become attached to Krishna. Becoming attached to Krishna will help us become detached from the mood of being the enjoyers of the temporary. However, there's this mixed devotional service, which we're well aware of, within ourselves and within others. Go around the PowerPoint. Yep. That's, yeah. Yukta Vairagya becomes more complete as we chant nicely and study Bhagavad Gita nicely and apply Bhagavad Gita as it is intended to be applied. And then gradually we progress into understanding the Bhagavatam with a graduate study of Bhagavad Gita and apply it in our lives. And the door, the path of bhakti is open. And there's a beginning, and there's an intermediate, and there's an advanced stage of bhakti. So we would all like to progress further in the bhakti process. So these teachings are important for us to progress further in the bhakti process. Now, it's certainly possible we can just stay in the beginning stages of bhakti, but I think we've all experienced what happens when you do that. Kind of complacency sets in. There was a discussion just yesterday on this topic. Nice devotee. But, recognizing I don't experience the same thing I know it's available from chanting and from other forms of devotional service. By using Bhaktivinoda Thakur's language, enthusiasm has become cold. And so what to do? Got to get enthusiasm back up to the warmth. So, these teachings are meant to help us achieve that. There's a reason why 8 chapters, almost in a row, are on the same theme. It's important for us, that's why. And recognize having proper sambandha again. The way that Bhaktivinoda Thakur addresses it. Haridas Thakur says it in Harinam Chintamani. You're not going to get the full effect of chanting without proper sambandha gyan. And proper sambandha gyan doesn't mean you can get an A in your Bhakti Shastra. You can check the box, fill in the blank, get an A in your Bhakti Shastra. The application, the understanding and bringing it within your heart and orienting yourself to others and to paraphernalia and your inner life and all of those different levels, and then one can progress nicely without interruption. The door is open, the path is open, and all of this is to help us move along that path better, with continued enthusiasm and continued experience of our relationship with Krishna. Vishnu is restless. He wants to get his flute and dance. Too many adult minutes passing here. He wants to play. Okay, let's see if there's some discussion. We have a portable microphone and we have a lot of people here. Translation. I want to play. Any comments or questions? We have one over here. Did you pass the mic?
Hare Krishna. What we're hearing is about the symptoms of a liberated soul, very high platform. So, while we're cultivating the Sambandha Gnana, like you described, Krishna's relationship with us and all the things we have, including the resources we have, and developing the realization fully, but realization is gradual. So, my application of this section seems to be like this, that cultivate path of bhakti, cultivate the strong realization by mercy of Krishna, whatever regarding Sambandha Gnana, so that, and cultivate acting on that platform, so that way, then, like practice like that.
If you get an A in your exam, the oral exam, then comes practical life. But knowing what the Sambandha and Abhideya are, and even more, something of a picture of what the Prayojana is, then you continue. Now, I was thinking as I was speaking, there's probably different persons of different stages in their bhakti life here. And it's going to resonate more with some people and less with other people and all of that. I was thinking that thought as presenting all this. And that's perfectly fine, because hearing from Krishna is association with Krishna. At whatever level we are, where our trajectory of spiritual life is, we're associating with Krishna just by hearing. Now, we can just have kirtan, which we were doing before. That's associated with Krishna too. But then this is another part of associating with Krishna, that is his instructions. how to get to an unobstructed relationship with him directly from Krishna, and then assisted by our acharyas. So that's part of the cultivation. And then repeating back what you said, the application part is that's up to us. Minimally, purification is taking place because there's association with Krishna through sound. That the greater purification or elevation of consciousness is that which we've understood to gravitate towards it or aspire for it or try to become situated more like Krishna's instruction. Of course, this is just a small section. There's Uddhava Gita is a really big section. It's as big as Bhagavad Gita. But so it's associated with Krishna. And we continue trying to apply these teachings in our practical affairs. Whatever our age, whatever our stage, whatever our... Our host has something about that.
Uddhava Gita versus Bhagavad Gita. Instruction.
A little louder.
Can you please detail that? What is the specific audience for Uddhava Gita and what is the specific audience? I understood that
For Bhagavad Gita?
for Bhagavad Gita. Is it for elevated people? Uddhava Gita.
In the sense that it's taking principles, it's for everybody. But understanding of the principles may take a little bit of refinement, and refinement comes about from purification. So it may be for persons who are a little more elevated, just purification-wise. But it doesn't have to be a scholarly person, just someone whose heart is open to, receiving principles from Krishna, because their heart is open, oriented towards Krishna. So that person is going to receive more, and the person that's less refined is going to receive less. But it's for everybody. Now, Prabhupada gave us the Srimad Bhagavatam after he gave us Bhagavad Gita, which tells you something. More introductory to Bhagavad Gita. And after gathering the understanding of Bhagavad Gita, then it makes it easier to understand what's being expressed in Uddhava Gita. So your question is about the audience, and it's a more refined audience, perhaps, of persons that already have some essence of principle. Now they can take it to another level. But supposing somebody hasn't done that, they could hear Uddhava Gita and go, wow. At least this much. This is real spiritual science. Just this morning I was hearing Prabhupada say just that. Where in the world, in the religions of the world, have this kind of vastness of spiritual teachings? What to speak of the degree, the Shuddha Sattva nature, the vastness of it, and so many subject matters. Essence to understand Krishna. Out of these different 10 subject matters, and holding up a book, and 400 pages, 60 volumes. Where is there? There isn't. It's not poo-pooing others, because essences are also there. But it is for more elevated study. Those who really wish to know, the Bhagavatam is there. And as I'm saying that, I'm thinking there are persons who have really strong faith in a particular practice or teaching or religious body of knowledge. And they really appreciate, many really appreciate the Bhagavatam. Doesn't mean they give up that if they take this or something, but so it's from preliminary to more complete, more gradual study. That's the audience, or it can take the audience to that position. I'm starting from the first canto. Yes, back there.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you very much for making this very highly elevated subject very relevant for us. The purification of senses, the word used, vinirmukta. So it is mentioned that the vital energy, the vital forces, the senses, and the mind, as you engage in bhakti, they get purified. This purification is on the absolute platform, or is it
On the what platform?
absolute platform, or is it on the relative platform? Meaning,
Well, it can be either, or both.
I just
Jnana Shakti is Maya Shakti subdivision or feature. That's the language that's used. The feature of Maya Shakti. So let me ask you: is whatever it is that Maya Shakti does, maybe it produces something that looks good or bad? Is that absolute? Relative. There's absolute goodness, and then there's relative goodness. No, it can be either or both. Becoming absorbed in this teaching that Krishna is giving to Uddhava can be limited or complete, like the bhakti process. Bhakti itself is pure. The knowledge that Krishna is giving is pure, absolutely pure. How one receives it may be limited. Does that answer your question?
Yes, Maharaj, I was always contemplating that the purification that one receives through bhakti, if it's eternal, it has to be on the absolute platform, because
Well, but it can become covered over. And the benefit that one receives may be not the fullness that the bhakti process can give. Not only may, but that's more common. Mixed devotional service doesn't have the same efficacy as pure devotional service, although it's the same message. Let's take something really simple like chanting. According to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, one can Bahu Janma Kariyadi Shravana Kirtana. One can chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, which is the same for all of us. Many lifetimes. Bahu Janma. Many lifetimes. Without getting the full effect. No. Is there some effect? Yes. Is it having an effect if someone chants without shuddha, without being freed from offenses? Is there some material benefit that goes to that person? Definitely. Is there absolute benefit that goes to that person? Definitely. Is there a mix? Definitely. Not that it has to be a bucket. It's all this or nothing. If it was the other, it's absolute or nothing, we're in trouble. Krishna may fulfill desire. That's not absolute. Through the medium of the bhakti process. Isn't it? You want to go on with your question? You're holding the microphone like you're ready to say something more.
The
but
symptoms, no, I understand. Actually, this is a very eye-opener for me to understand this dynamism of bhakti. The principle that's given here, the tolerance, going on with the transcendental mood without getting affected by the both sides of positive and negative that comes in. So this is like trying to just keep going towards the absolute platform without being bothered by it.
Now, that's ideal. Supposing somebody's not, their orientation is less than what you just expressed. Here comes a negative thought. Somebody just said something really nasty or did something really nasty, and I'm really struggling with paying attention to japa because my thoughts aren't that nasty. Either the person or the thing that was done or said and how it hurts and how it's affecting me and those close to me and et cetera, getting absorbed in the temper. I'm chanting. Is it absolute? Chanting is absolute. Distraction is also going on. So through association and through good instructions, we can stay on track and get closer to what you described. That's what's being encouraged. It's Uddhava's question, and it should be our question. Undue attachment to the temporal because it's obstructing our understanding and our relationship with Krishna. Okay, so anyone else? You had something? Yeah? You had the microphone a little while ago. Okay, there's people online, so speak so the people online can hear. Hold it closer to your mouth.
See, the humans born here, okay, they have good karma and bad karma. Okay, so when they want to realize the bad karma, they enter the spiritual path. Then based on the Guru instruction or based on the highly qualified devotees instruction, okay, everyone teach me.
Speak into the microphone.
Okay, everyone saying that no, you have to reduce the bad karma and increase the good karma, so that right.
That's not exactly what spiritual teachers say. Spiritual teachers say, pause that one and direct your attention to Krishna. Not just do good karma and reduce the bad karma stuff.
You want to...
The answer is, bhakti can eradicate all of that.
Yeah.
Bhakti has the power to eliminate all reactions for all unlimited numbers of lifetimes of bad activities. Bhakti has that power. So the teaching is go towards that. Go towards the act for the pleasure of Krishna position. Don't just like, for example, don't just become vegetarian. It's a subset. Vegetarian. You say no to other things because you can't offer Krishna. So the emphasis is on pleasing Krishna.
But now, if you are pleasing Krishna, okay, but still your heart has right until unless you become a purifier yourself, okay, you are unable to concentrate, right?
Yes, you're right. You're absolutely right. Krishna says it too.
Because the both ways, okay, for example, okay, I have the bad smell, that means previous life is carrying or this life is carrying.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So when I want to concentrate something, okay, some good things actually.
Yeah.
Or prayer something, okay, or sitting into 1 hour in front of God to do some prayers.
Good.
Okay. But okay,
Mine is
the
elsewhere.
old desire, okay, you understand, right?
Yeah.
It's always pulling. No. Come, right? So
Very familiar.
until unless you have to know, say to your manasu, okay, no, at least do one hour, then we can do whatever you want, okay. So by gradually you have to say that until unless you have to reduce that one, then only you will 100% concentrate that one. Otherwise each and every time I am sitting, because of the so many devotees are so many, people are going to temple and praying and 20 years, 30 years, okay, but you see that, okay, until unless you have to question yourself, okay, hey, I am progressing 20 years, okay, but why still I am not concentrating? Is there any mistake? I want to ask somebody.
Very good.
Okay,
Very
so until unless you have to question yourself, okay, then you are, the entire life you doing, right? So this no, I don't know whether I cannot say that waste, but no, until unless you have to question day by day, okay, why it is coming this many bad things, and also why I am unable to reduce this one. Okay, so really we coming to the devotional path, okay, because of I want to reach the God. Okay, if you want to reach the God, then what is the next step actually? So what is the first step? Okay, so I have, for example,
You want
I have
the first step or the next step? Which one do you want?
no, first step, then one by one, right? We have to gradually go.
But so I want to know, which do you want to know, the first step or the next step?
First step,
First step.
then next step.
First step, sadhu sangha. With faith.
Okay.
That's first step.
Okay,
First step. And then what's the next step from sadhu sangha? You do with sadhus what sadhus do. It's called bhajana kriya. That's the next step. Okay, I'm doing some of the things with sadhus that sadhus do. Now what's the next step? Anarchana vritti. What's that? Unwanted stuff that's inside. It's just keeping the language simple. Anartha is something unwanted, and it's in the heart. I want that stuff. Please take it away. So I do those things. The bhajana kriya is the cleansing. So with faith, and how, the years, 20 years, 30 years.
yeah, exactly. The anartha is the main part.
However long it takes, if the process, this is like a cleanser advertisement, marketing. Okay, stronger than dirt. And boom, boom. It can clean the heart. And you have the right cleanser and you're doing this rabadav, it's going to become clean. Now, I'm 20 years later, I'm saying, look, yeah, it's somewhat cleaner, but it's not spotless yet. There's still stuff in there.
Yes.
And so, am I doing something wrong, or there's something wrong with the process, or so you certainly do some calibration, reevaluation. Do I have a wrong understanding of the goal? Do I have a wrong understanding of the process? Am I not applying myself properly to the process? Is there something wrong with me? I'm just like a broken person forever, or you look at those things. But you do that under guidance of Guru Sadhu Shastra, and it doesn't change the principle. The principle is sadhu sangha, bhajana kriya, anarchana vritti, and you refine it. As long as you have the proper analysis of the heart condition and the means to overcome it. It's just like Ayurveda. You get a good Ayurvedic doctor and he tells you this is what's going on with your body, and I can make it, so that it's in proper balance. Then you'll have good health. And you have good diagnosis, good medicine, good diet, and I'm faithfully following. The result will come. It may take some time. With Ayurveda, generally it does, but that's okay. And you feel something, you keep going. The difficulty, this is my experience, after some time, complacency sets in. Complacency, like, it's not as painful as it was before. I'm not doing the same really awful things I was doing before. And I'm feeling better about myself and my life, and it's, much cleaner, and I've become a little complacent. I'm not in that mood of trying to go the full distance. And then it's uncomfortable. Then we start to do something. So the unsteadiness has to do, specifically, Scripture says, has to do with the impure things in the heart. And there's a big stockpile of them. And it takes enthusiasm to get rid of the stockpile. The proper method, proper medicine, proper diet, proper exercise, proper lifestyle, and I'll get there. If I really want good health, then I have to do those things in an alignment method with a good doctor, Ayurvedic doctor. So saying, if it takes long, it generally has something to do with the heart becoming complacent, not the method, but the weakness of heart. Hridaya Dorbalya, in the language of Bhagavad Gita, weakness of heart. That's why.
Yeah, that's what Anadrimurtu only that no. I am struggling actually, pulling, and both are fighting actually. So,
But that's the mind. It's not somebody else.
Yeah,
That's somebody outside of you. It's the weakness of heart.
exactly.
And as long as the threshold is like bearable, then yeah, I'm okay. Become complacent.
My intention is I want to come out of this as early as possible. Otherwise, people will see that COVID people, a lot of people is dying. We don't know when we are going to die, right? So as early as possible.
But aside from COVID, we don't know when we're going to die. We could walk out the front door and not make it to the next place we're going. One day that's going to happen.
Exactly.
For sure.
Yeah.
Not maybe, for sure. One day we're not going to do the next step. And might. One day, for sure. And we don't know when. So now what? So let me live my life in a way that's, then you fill in the blank. And it can be the complacent, it can be the indulgent, it can be the continued purification, or a mix. And often, most people, it's a mix. So, if you really want that, you go the distance, be clear what the goal is, be clear you have an understanding of what the process to reach the goal, and you work towards it. And what we've been discussing here is proper sambandha again. Know the territory. What's the material world like? What are the tendencies, the material desire tendencies that capture me? And let me be wary. Let me stay on course. Don't become negligent or complacent or inattentive. So that's recommend, and then really easy to become complacent and inattentive again. Like second nature. That's our material conditioning. We have to get on the other side of that. Let's see if there's someone else, or we're gonna go online. Do we have something? Okay. Okay, so I think we're done. Are we done? We're done. The Prabhupada. My compliments to the young people who sat through all of this. Oh.